shop update video. Shop upgrade project here. I'm building a downdraft table, and the need for the downdraft table arises from, well, any woodworker makes dust, but making cutting boards involves a lot of sanding, and my idea is to do a more mass production scale of cutting boards, and I have a bit of hardwood here ready to go and a couple test boards that I'm making. Yep, train is here. And this is actually the first train of the fall foliage season, starting here in Chester, Vermont. This train is going to go a couple times a day, and sometimes it just sits and idles all day. It makes a lot of noise. Well, the train is gone, which makes narrating a video a little bit easier. So the downdraft table that I'm going to build is going to incorporate my 5/8 silicone bumpers for the work surface. I've just been using a rug pad for many years. I've needed a downdraft table for quite some time, so it's going to be a big improvement. And in order for this design to maximize the dust collection efficiency, I'm going to make a 6-inch flexible hose connection, and that's going to require an addition to my dust collection system. So I'm not going to start this part of the project yet with making the downdraft table. In this video, I'm going to talk about my dust collection system and what I'm going to do to modify it. And this is just a rough draft sketch to make a parts list for what I need to create a new branch to my system, which is going to drop down on this post right here. So I'm going to reconfigure things up here and add another branch, which is going to make a 4-inch connection and then a blast gate down below for the 6-inch flexible hose. So the flexible hose that's up here, I'm going to transfer it down and use that to connect the new downdraft table. And so I have another flexible hose here, and then the main part of the system, which goes all the way down to the shop on both ends. And so I use a combination of PVC with metal fittings, in case that wasn't obvious before. And this connection here is a custom-made manifold. It's the most expensive part to my system, and it has 6-inch on one end and 7-inch on the other. So the blower motor is connected behind this box hanging on a wall, and that is what blows through the wall, and it has a 7-inch inlet on it. So I made videos about my dust collection system before and how it works, so maybe you can reference one of those older videos to get just a general idea of what I have going on there. I've got the dust silo outside. So these are some of the 6-inch fittings that I have. This is a 22.5 degree elbow and some branch fittings. I got fittings at the plumbing warehouse. This one, you would never guess how expensive that was. $95 for a 6-inch to 4-inch Y. And yeah, very expensive. So I found some on eBay that were actually cheaper, and I'm going to return some of the ones I bought at this store. Here's a quick tip for woodworkers. I do not recommend the cheap plastic blast gates. I don't know why I bought this thing. I just thought I could get away with it or reinforce it somehow. But these things are terrible. They break apart very easily, and it's just a small glue joint in there that glues these two halves together. So if you're doing a permanent installation with 6-inch pipe, it really doesn't make any sense to use these plastic gates. They get clogged up easier, and they don't open up all the way, and they're going to just end up breaking and turning into garbage. So the aluminum gates are good. Here's two different kinds of aluminum blast gates. This is a typical one, and there's many different brands that make something similar. So the aluminum gates are good, but I just wanted to show you the Rolls-Royce of aluminum blast gates, and I bought this from the company where I get my custom metal fittings, airhand.com, If you need good quality flexible hose and a variety of metal fittings or custom fittings, I recommend that company. But the reason why I like these blast gates is because the main reason is they have a much thicker plate to open and close, which makes a big difference in the functionality. It doesn't bend nearly as easily, and it runs pretty smooth. But I really like how these open up all the way to get maximum 100% airflow through the pipe. And typical blast gates don't do that. That's what this piece of wire is here. It's the stop that prevents you from opening it up all the way. But typically they have an indent on the plate, and that prevents it from opening all the way. But then, like you can see here, you get a little spot. So it's not 100% efficient. It's not really a big deal, but I like to maximize efficiency, which is part of my design for the downdraft table. So this blast gate is better. These are known as the self-cleaning blast gates, and it's a 6-inch. You can get them in any size. For attaching grounding wire to PVC, I highly recommend this specific type of screw. It's a number 6 by 3/8 hex head sheet metal screw, and it's just long enough to poke through to the inside, so it effectively will ground the inside surface as well as the outside, which is important. Low fly. So as you can see, the head of the screw is not flat, it's slightly recessed, and that makes it ideal for seating the wire around the shank of the screw. This is the copper grounding wire that I use. It's 18 gauge stranded bare copper wire. I have these nylon bands. These are pretty useful. It's kind of like seatbelt material, but a little bit thinner, and that just staples right onto the ceiling, so I can hang flexible pipe, and it's easy to disassemble when I want to move it down. Okay, so we can see a little bit better now. Things are disassembled, and let's take a peek in here. So that's what the inside of the pipe looks like going to the dust blower. There's some old wiring. Zzz. So now that things are disassembled, I can take more accurate measurements to start making the first cuts to connect those two pipes. And so, just to make a note here, I'm going to change the blade on my chop saw to a blade that is dull, and a dull blade will cut PVC actually better than a sharp blade, and using a sharp new blade will actually make it fucking ruined. Fuck this video, fuck. Okay, so I'm ready to install the first part of the system modification. I have this configuration mapped out and cut to size, so that should connect these two branches up here. I used the stick to test fit the initial dimension, in which case it was just an inch too big, and that's just a convenient way to measure things. It's easier to use a stick than the measuring tape, and you can clamp the stick on. So for attaching the PVC to the metal ductwork, I'm going to use these 1/2-inch sheet metal screws. I'm also going to put silicone in between the two layers, just to make that sure that doesn't leak as much. The PVC fittings with the pipe, these fittings here don't leak, and there's absolutely no reason to use the cement to make that a permanent connection. It's way overkill, and it'll just mean that if you have to modify it, then you're pretty much SOL, and it's a waste of money. So do not glue your PVC fittings. If you feel like you need to make a rigid connection, you can use the silicone in the joints, and that'll make it like a temporary cement. The silicone works fine for doing that if for whatever reason you need to make it more permanent. So that's a very good thing to keep in mind when you're doing your system with PVC, not to use the glue. It's not the same as if it's holding water. Okay, so I have the first part of my system installed here, and the tapping screws worked very well. I have to say they probably worked better than the rivets, and the silicone filled up whatever gap was there in between. And so this is self-supporting here, and it's actually a little bit crooked the way I have it installed. I wanted to move it over as far as I could so that I could tie in the outlet with this post here. And so I have to make a couple more brackets. I'll show you the brackets that I have here. They're very simple to make out of 2x4 and plumbing strap. So I got this configuration to work with the Street 90 and Street 45 together. It fit in here just nicely. And so now I can measure off the wall about 1.25 inches, which is going to be the thickness of the backer plate on the bracket. So this is the blast gate connection. I made a little bit of a mess with the metal shavings and the glue there. I used rivets to attach the metal to the aluminum blast gate. This is a flex hose coupling that is an optional adapter, but it gives more grab on the flex hose, and so it works a little bit better. To attach the PVC to the blast gate, I used a little bit longer screw. These are 5/8 number 6 truss head wood screws, but they go through the aluminum, and I added more glue on the inside edge of the blast gate where it meets the PVC. There was a little bit of airspace showing through, and I ran out of silicone, so I just finished up with construction adhesive. Doesn't really matter what you use, you just have to get something to fill in the space. So my dust collection system edition is now complete. I'm ready to start building the downdraft table. Just want to go over a few things though. As a general strategy when designing your system, it's good to minimize the number of blast gates that you have, because each blast gate will leak a little bit. But in order to minimize your blast gates but still have ports available for shop vac connectors or connecting the sanders with the flexible hose, it's good to have this type of connection here. So I got around needing another blast gate, so instead of putting a 4-inch or 3-inch blast gate at this connection, I just plugged up the end. And that plug is just the connecting end that comes with the shop vac hose. So I just plastic wrap the end of that, and that fits in here. It makes a very efficient plug. So this part only cost about $4, and it doesn't leak at all. I have one there. I have another one up there, and another one down here at the table saw. And this is just a PVC plug that I wrapped with some tape to get it to fit, but the shop vac connector end works better. So I'm going to go outside just to check on the dust collector dust dumper and see what's going on there. So I did this experiment where I didn't change the dust collector last season, and I just let it overflow here. But it shows that the system continues to work even though I don't change it or do anything to maintain it. Just kind of makes a big mess here. But not that big of a deal. So I made a parts list just to add up the cost of doing this addition to give you an idea of what it takes to work with the 6-inch pipe. The metal fittings and the metal pipe are just about the same cost. The 10-foot lengths of 6-inch PVC are cheaper, so if you want to do a long run of dust piping, the 6-inch PVC is going to be cheaper, but the fittings of the Schedule 40 are quite expensive, as you can see here. I got some of them on eBay, but the more expensive ones I could only find at the plumbing supply store. And so it was an expensive project, and I reused a section of the 6-inch flex hose. I used to have that on the ceiling. Now I'm going to use it to connect my downdraft table, but if I were to have to buy that again, that would add another $75 to the cost of the project. So this is the final draft of my downdraft table, and it's going to be made out of scrap plywood and scrap softwood, spruce and pine. It's really gonna suck. So if you're designing your dust collection system and trying to decide if PVC is better than the metal fittings, my recommendation is to use both. With the metal fittings, you can get custom-made parts that will maximize the air distribution and make use of the space efficiently. And you can't get fittings like that in PVC. But the cost difference between the two is not that much. And the metal pipe has advantages, so there's pros and cons to either way. With the metal, obviously you don't have to worry about the grounding wire. And if it's a code issue, if you have a commercial shop, you might not have a PVC option. But if you're a home shop or a one-man operation like me, then I like the PVC. The 6-inch PVC is difficult to work with, but I'd prefer that over cutting the metal pipe with the saber saw and having to glue and rivet everything. The PVC is really straightforward to work with, and it can go together in a way that it can come apart for modification, which is what I really like about it. And the other thing I really like about it is that it's virtually indestructible, and that means that it's not vulnerable to get dented or broken. This is a vulnerable space here that is liable to get banged around with boards moving around in the shop. So I don't have to worry about that with the Schedule 40, and it also means that I can hang it in different ways because it is so rigid structurally. I can just wrap these plumbing straps around it and tie it right into a post. With the metal, it's a little bit more delicate, so I have to get pipe hangers and other fittings to attach it to the walls and ceilings. So anyways, that's my prognosis with deciding PVC or metal, which is better. I like the PVC. So it's smooth. Either one is good. It's going to do its job, but if you can use the PVC, I would go with that.